talking and leading into the award. When I was a young man, or a younger man, actually it's almost 50 years ago now, I was on a plane headed halfway around the world. In my bag, and I think I may be wrong, but I think the book was Bernard Fall's The Two Vietnams, and it told the story of how Kublai Khan had invaded Vietnam after conquering China, becoming the first non-Chinese to take over China, and invaded Vietnam and had lost. And then 2 years later regrouped, put his best general in charge of the army. This time also took cavalry and put together one of the largest naval armadas that the Far East had ever seen, and went after Vietnam a second time. And Vietnam beat Kublai Khan for the second time. Now, if you're a young Army officer headed into war in Vietnam, that's not the kind of reading that's very heartening. And I thought, boy, this is going to be a tough war, and it was. And then 2 years ago, or roughly 2 years ago, my wife Lori and I were in Vietnam. We spent an evening at Ho Lan Bay, spent it on the water at Ho Lan Bay, and on the way back, we stopped at a pagoda, and we went in, drove in, and as we read, I realized that this was the same king who had ruled Vietnam during those two attempts on the part of Kublai Khan to conquer Vietnam. And then I learned some more about this king. After that, the last triumph, not too long thereafter, he gave up his throne and went to live on a mountaintop in a life of contemplation and self-sacrifice and simplicity. That he also, when the war ended, had allowed the Mongol warriors to go back rather than killing them, as was often the case in these kinds of wars. And then there were some Vietnamese who basically had aided Kublai Khan. And his punishment for them was not killing, but they had to change their last name so everyone would know who they were thereafter. But reaching out, this whole idea of reconciliation, compassion, simplicity, the end of the war, he opened up the treasury so that they could feed the poor. And that king was Tran Nhan Tong. And we have someone here tonight who is going to be able to tell you in greater detail about him. It's Layman That. We're very honored to have him. Professor That is Vice President of the Buddhist University in Ho Chi Minh City. He's a foremost scholar of Buddhism and Vietnam history. Also, he's from Quang Tri province, and there's a couple of veterans in the room, in addition to myself. Quang Tri province was where the Battle of Khe Sanh took place. One of the bloodiest battles of the Vietnam War, 3,000 casualties on the American side, an unknown number, much greater on the Vietnamese side. There was a Special Forces camp. I was in Special Forces. One of my colleagues, Doug Coulter, who I met in Vietnam, was also in Special Forces. The Special Forces camp, a few kilometers from Khe Sanh, Long Bay, got overrun. And it was one of the toughest battles of the Vietnam War. Well, Professor That is from Quang Tri, and what he would like to do, and what Tran Nhan Tong Academy is going to work with him on, is creating a memorial and a museum at Khe Sanh that will recognize not simply the Vietnamese sacrifices of the war, but will be an opportunity and a place where the shared sacrifices of the American soldiers and the Vietnamese soldiers can be recognized. It's now going to provide us some additional wisdom and words so that we know more about the person after whom this award is named.